In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, we're going to be talking all things Snapdragon laptops, just in time for the holidays, with a very special guest from Qualcomm. Next. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. I am joined, as always, with my compatriot, Marco Chiappetta. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing okay. How's everybody doing?
Good. I'm coming through clear because right before the stream started, my mic bugged out on me. I hope that's not the case.
You sound perfect. It wouldn't be a live stream if it was smooth.
Excellent. And speaking of perfect, is this guy on the bottom of the Brady Bunch here? He really should be at top. But this is PJ Jakobowicz from Qualcomm. PJ, did I say that last name right, I hope?
You sure did. Yeah, it's a crazy last name. It uses like every letter in the alphabet. Like everybody stumbles on it. It's crazy. But thank you, PJ Jakobowicz. Thank you, Dave and Marco,
awesome.
for having me.
Welcome to the live stream, brother. Good to see you again. Your last name is almost as easy to butcher as my last name. So I feel your pain.
It doesn't end in a vowel, though. It feels like something's out of place.
I know. We're way too Italian on this show, PJ, so you'll have to excuse us for now.
Hey, I grew up on Long Island. It's just all Jews and Italians, so I feel
Long
like
Island.
right at home. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, welcome, PJ. We're here to talk Snapdragon X, Elite X, Plus X, whatever, as far as laptops go. And PJ is a senior marketing manager from Qualcomm, right? Is that your current title, or did they like kick you upstairs a notch again?
That is, every year, I just climb through the demotion ranks. So I just, no, I'm kidding. So here I am. No. I do marketing here at Snapdragon on the Snapdragon team. And so I used to do marketing for the smartphone processors. I used to be the lead for camera and gaming technologies, but with the release of the Snapdragon X series for Windows laptops, this is an all hands on deck situation. And so we're bringing all these amazing technologies from our smartphone chips, but also brand new CPU technology that has never been unleashed before at Qualcomm. So I'm happy to be here and be on this marketing team now and just working with all the brilliant engineers and talent here at Qualcomm and at Microsoft.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's a little bit about where you're coming from and where you're at. What's your purview, I guess, in terms of your daily responsibilities here? Folks that might not be familiar with you. So are you go to market? Are you just marketing in general? What's your daily, hit list like at Qualcomm for what you do?
Totally. So Qualcomm, we like move and we pivot fast. And so, a lot of what I work on is working on the messaging and the marketing materials for each chip, but then activating launches at events as well as press events. And so a lot of it is the technical marketing. So it's working with the engineers, learning about the new feature sets that are coming, and then working also with our app developers to showcase all of the apps that tap into this hardware and, show the new experiences that are coming to market. So a lot of what I focus on are, I see you guys at every event. So whether it's CES or Snapdragon Summit or Mobile World Congress or, just events throughout the industry. So anytime we have a launch for one of our own products, or if there's a massive update to one of our SDKs, or if we have partners that are tapping into our NPU, CPU, GPU, I work on helping make that story big and creating the videos and the blogs and just helping get the word out or just activate in person.
Sounds like a pretty cool job.
Guys, it's so much fun. Yeah, we get to see, stuff that's coming to market. We get to peek around the corner. And then also we get to kind of help kind of poke it like, hey, what are we interested in, and help put it on their radars. And also, frankly, what you guys are interested in. And I know gaming, which is, something we'll talk about. And we obviously every day are going back to engineering and being like, we got to be there. So we could chat about that. And so it goes both ways. It's a lot of fun. And just getting to work with a lot of these engineers and all of these partners, it's a fun gig.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, the format is, as usual, folks, if you're familiar with the live stream here, the 2.5 Geeks live stream, we've got some conversation hit points for PJ on our side, but you are certainly welcome to hop in the chat. Marco, why don't you run down the rules of engagement for him real quick, like you normally do?
Sure. Yeah. So no specific rules, but if we're streaming on multiple platforms at once right now. So if you're on LinkedIn or you're on Twitter right now watching the live stream, if you want to interact live, you got to hop over to YouTube, because we will get live comments in our StreamYard window if you're on YouTube. But if you're commenting on other platforms, we won't see it. So if you want to interact with PJ, one of these rare opportunities to have direct access to an executive within a company like Qualcomm, head over to YouTube and comment in that chat area. Other than that, no rules. Well, let's not get PJ in trouble. He's not going to comment. Yeah, he's not going to comment on anything that's unreleased. You're not going to get some trick him into revealing some salacious info on something that's not in the market yet. So we're not going to try to corner him in that regard. And let's keep it civil. We know the enthusiast PC space in general and the internet in general can sometimes not be the nicest place, but we're only going to interact with people that are respectful and nice. And other than that, no rules though. Everything goes.
Cool. Yeah. Guys, look, I'm from New York. Let's it's free for all. Let's do it.
Thick skin.
Me too. I'm originally from New York too. So we got 2 New Yorkers here.
Love it.
Yeah. So folks, if you have any questions, toss them in the chat. We'll field them as we go. But certainly we'll dig into some hot topics ourselves, because these laptops have been hitting the market by storm. Snapdragon X Elite initially, and then newer, more mainstream, I guess, silicon, if you will, for lower price points, but still offering premium experiences. Boy, I tell you what, Microsoft stepping out with the Copilot Plus initiative really kind of took everybody by surprise. It was like one day it was Qualcomm was obviously the smartphone chipset for everything that isn't a fruity company device. And then all of a sudden, bang, you're like, you have arrived in laptops. But it was really a multi-year journey to get there for sure, right, PJ?
100%. So we've had some chips before on it with Microsoft, but when they saw the new Orion CPU architecture that delivered just awesome performance, awesome battery life, and awesome performance when you're on battery as well, so it doesn't throw out. They were just, I think, Microsoft really rallied around this, plus the NPU that's inside of Snapdragon now for running neural networks. It was awesome. They created a whole new brand just for these new PCs, and I was actually at that launch event. It was totally bonkers, and it's been awesome. And actually, you know what? I was excited. So before that, I was, I've been using a prototype device before that launch for about 6 months. Yeah. I was using, I don't know if you guys had seen them. There were these red laptops that we created, and they were prototypes. And I'd been using it for 6 months, and I was just like, this is going to kick butt. Like it gave me the confidence to go out there and help, create stuff. It was truly awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. So actually I have it up on the screen now. This is your custom CPU core. This is a 12-core CPU. This is the X Elite, and it is an all-new SoC. Orion CPU cores listed there, but you've got Adreno GPU, you've got the Hexacon NPU engine, and of course, all the other bells and whistles that go with it, memory controller, and all that good stuff. But really, a heavy lift kind of new architecture that was born from the acquisition of Nuvia, right? And the engineering talent that you folks brought in there.
These guys are, they're super smart, obviously, genius guys. And I think when they came in, it was just, it helped even turbocharge even more everything that was going on here at Qualcomm. So, and honestly, that's helping, everybody tap into everything else that's going on. So like now with that powerful, traditional CPU, now people are, more interested in exploring outside of it. So again, the NPU, the GPU that's in there, and frankly, actually, the ISP. So my old world, the camera that's in there.
Yeah.
One of the things that's happening, this new class of laptops, they've actually transitioned from using the USB port as a webcam inside, but they're now using the MIPI interface, which gives you way more throughput and gives you direct access to the ISP. And so you'll notice if everyone goes into the device manager on your Snapdragon X Elite laptops and X Plus and everything, you'll see that it's a MIPI connection. And you should see that your webcam is like the next level of webcam quality. It's and then when you combine it plus all the enhancements plus the NPU, it's kick butt webcam quality on these laptops.
Are you on a laptop now?
Yeah, actually. So I brought out the super duper big guns for this podcast, but so I'm using an external microphone, I'm using an external webcam, but the laptop I'm on right now, my daily driver. Let me give you a spin right here. Here we go. Is the this is the Samsung Galaxy Book Edge 4, the 16-inch model.
Nice.
And I think, like, honestly, one of the things, because these devices get awesome battery life now, they can put on, frankly, components that are more power hungry. So this has a 3K OLED display, and it's just, once you experience Windows and OLED,
yeah,
that's it. Yeah. So I'm my favorite devices are the ones that have OLED.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been test driving as a daily driver the Lenovo Slim 7X, and it has a 3K OLED display as well, 14-inch 3K OLED. And one of the things I did notice right away, I'm a big Windows Hello user, and usually and a lot of times, because I hate mashing my passwords, on a locked laptop, what have you, I like letting the camera do the work and do the face recognition. And usually I have to wait a few seconds, maybe 5, 10, whatever, for it to detect my face. This thing just immediately recognizes me. Like, sometimes I flip the lid open and bang, I'm right in Windows. I don't even have to wait a second for it to see me. Maybe the lighting's bad and I have to wait a couple more seconds in that case, but usually in a decently lit room, bang, I'm right in. And so I did notice that. And maybe it is because of the higher bandwidth MIPI interface that it's, recognizing me so quick. So
totally, I 100%. And I think there's actually a couple of things that are going on there. So with Snapdragon, these devices go instant on, just like your smartphone, because they're in the sleep state is super low power, but comes right on right when you pull these up. And the other thing that's happening is those Windows Hello cameras use IR that's tapped into our presence detector on the always on ISP. And so there's a main ISP inside Snapdragon that's 18-bit over 1 billion shades of color, absolutely, awesome, doing, noise reduction, all the traditional, 3A, autofocus, everything's in hardware. It's awesome quality. That's the main ISP. But it has a second ISP that's super low power, always on, so it could do instant Windows Hello unlock. And by the way, the other feature that's there is, and I believe it's enabled in most Snapdragon X Elite laptops, but they can tap into that always on ISP to do presence detection. So it can heighten security when you're in Windows, because it unlocks right when you open it, but then you can have it actually relock when you're not in front of the laptop. Yeah. So those are some of the benefits of using Snapdragon with super low power components inside.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually started playing with Windows Hello quite a bit this past year, much more so than previously, just digging into it. And yeah, like with that laptop, especially the eye gaze detect, the thing dims and then goes to sleep if I'm looking away from it. It's like it's pretty wild. I love that feature. Pain in the butt sometimes if it locks too often because I'm not looking at it, but
Yeah,
it's not
no,
bad. Or
totally.
it goes dim. But yeah, it's good stuff.
But by
Go
the way,
ahead.
that Lenovo laptop that you reviewed, that the OLED on that one is champion. I think it's like
Stunning.
1,000 nit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, and I can crank it up, and it still maintains decent battery life. Because of the low power Snapdragon platform on board for sure. Been very impressed with battery life on that machine, no question about it. I've been yapping too much though, Marco. I know you've got a couple of burning questions in your mind. We've been geeking out without letting he's usually the primary geek.
Well, PJ actually stole some of my thunder. I was gonna throw, lob the camera question over to him towards the end in case it didn't come up, because that was like one of the unsung heroes of Snapdragon X when all the first reviews hit. Is a lot of people didn't really cover how much better the webcams are on those machines, and you guys just cut my legs off right from the start. So all good.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I love cameras.
No, it's all good.
Love it all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. But I think we should just step back a little bit, right? Because we kind of dove right in.
Good idea.
For folks that aren't intimately familiar with the tech, like hot hardware readers are most likely familiar, but if there's anyone watching on YouTube or one of the other platforms that's not familiar with Snapdragon X, these are not the same chips traditionally that have been in phones from Qualcomm Snapdragon chips that have powered ultra mobile devices. Can you just give a little high level on what separates Snapdragon X, say, from previous gen Snapdragon 8? Because we know the newest Snapdragon 8 Elite is using Orion, but just to give some color on what differentiates the Snapdragon X Elite from other Qualcomm platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. Straight up, it's the debut of the new Orion CPU. There's tons of changes to the GPU, to the NPU, to Wi-Fi, to Bluetooth, but the Snapdragon X Elite was a huge change from previous Snapdragons because it had a brand new CPU to architecture. And as Dave pointed out earlier, that came with the acquisition of a company called Nuvia. And so they were working on their own CPU. They joined Qualcomm, and Qualcomm took that CPU and decided, okay, it's time to really turbocharge Windows laptops. We've been in, obviously, Android smartphones, cars, IoT devices, everything for year. And the main thing that obviously our smartphones powered by Snapdragon do best is reliable multi-day battery life combined with awesome performance. And that's what we wanted to bring to Windows laptops. So laptops that, instantly turn on, don't get, we don't want to hear that fan noise. We don't want them getting hot, just like your smartphone. They should instantly turn on. Don't want them to have a fan. Don't want them to have fan noise. But these are Windows laptops. They have to bring the performance. They absolutely have to bring it. And so the Snapdragon X Elite, I think, previous chips, I think, obviously were like, didn't make bold claims about the performance. They were kind of just like, hey, finally just great battery life, everything. Snapdragon X Elite came out slugging. We wanted to restore, champion performance, not just to Snapdragon, but to Windows in general. And, these laptops came out with just awesome performance for laptop form factors. And I think also people now are realizing not just great performance, but great performance when you're using them on battery. So competitors, when you unplug them from the wall, the chipset goes into a different state, and you'll see it throttles performance. Whereas Snapdragon, is super close to what you'd get to, the same state when you're plugged into the wall.
Yeah, that was something that actually we dug into ourselves a little bit. Initially versus some of the x86 products on the market, whether it be Intel or AMD powered machines, was, that's the way people use laptops, right? I mean, most of the time, unless you're talking about a big gaming laptop that's a boat anchor of a machine and needs a ton of power, most of the time you're not plugged into the wall. And so we were intimately, aware of this and wanting to see what that picture looked like. And yeah, you guys, I think our numbers showed it was something like 0 to 5% in a lot of case performance bleed on battery, or yeah, I think it really depended on the use case, but it was minimal. Like user perceptible minimal difference.
So let me say something that I'm not allowed to say.
Uh-oh.
So part of my job is, coming up ways what we should be communicating. And I would say 95% of my ideas are like, PJ, we can absolutely never say that. And so this is an example of one of them. I was like, hey, we should call this the first laptop processor for Windows, because I think every laptop chip before this was a compromise when you're using it as a laptop on battery. And this chip is, consistent, performs one way, whether it's plugged in or if you're actually using it on battery, the way that a laptop is meant to be used. And there hasn't been much like that before.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely not say that. And, but it was, it's a over the top claim. But I think, to the point we're saying, yeah, it's you don't have to compromise on the performance when you're on battery.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. I mean, we've seen, comparably, versus x86 rivals, somewhere up about 30-40% performance bleed on battery. And I think that's getting better with the new crop of Lunar Lake machines, but it's still, from Intel, but it's still not even in the same ballpark as what Snapdragon can do in that regard. Certainly the battery life king, no question about it.
Yeah, that's one of the nuances there that lots of folks don't understand, right? If you run a suite of benchmarks on a machine plugged in to show best case scenario, and you can do performance comparisons that way and really see where particular chips and architecture stand. But then you do a battery life test. If the machine throttled back 30-40% to get a comparable battery life score, what would happen to that battery life if the chip was running at full performance? And that's why you see lots of the x86 machines really dial performance back, because the battery life just simply won't be there at maximum performance. So, it's an interesting thing. Before the Snapdragon launch, it was, Qualcomm was coming from a place with deep mobile, low power, high efficiency, platforms up into a laptop space, where for years, this is not technically true anymore because AMD and Intel do have laptop architectures specific now, but they were coming from a much higher power place down into laptops. So it was just, it's just a different sort of transition into a semi-new market for you guys. It's real interesting stuff. Totally.
I mean, it was a total race. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
We did get a question in the chat, and I'm not sure if this is more aligned with the OEM machine involved or not. But Sadiq Vivo says, "Why do Snapdragon X series laptops reduce their battery percentage in a sleep state?" I think every laptop kind of does that to a certain extent, by the way. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, PJ. We figured we'd field it.
Why do they reduce their battery percentages in a certain sleep you know what? I'm not sure. Like, so they're saying the projection of how long the battery will last, or?
Yeah, they still bleed in a sleep state.
I apologize. Yeah, I see. Oh, because they're still, okay, here's why. The device is still on.
Yeah.
The devices that's the awesomeness of Snapdragon. So if you watch some of the reviews, you'll notice that people love the fact that they only lose 1 to 2% of their battery life overnight. So if you turn it off, it's only using 1 to 2%. And that's actually a great thing, because when you turn it, you want it to be on. And only losing 1 to 2% is a great compromise, because when you open it up, it's instantly on. It was never truly off. And the fact that it was only using 1 to 2% battery is like actually, miraculous. So that's kind of the reason why there's still a little bit of battery draw when the lid is closed and you think that it's off.
Yeah, yeah. Big difference between shutting off the machine versus putting it to sleep. You have to keep that DRAM refreshed with a little bit of power, so that when you return to the awakened state, things are everywhere just where you left them. So
right. I guess the other like alternative to this, it's like, would you rather lose 1 to 2% overnight and have instant on when you open up, or would you rather it wait 10 seconds every time you opened up the lid and use no power? It's like, that's the cost of being able to just go instant on. And we think it's a good, trade-off.
There you go. There you go.
And
Marco,
can I just add something quick? Just
go
to get
for it,
nerdy
man.
for a second. So Siddiq, if there's a specific machine that you're referencing, you have to keep in mind all the platforms use slightly different microcontrollers, different components inside a system. So you might see different numbers from different Snapdragon X machines. In addition, if there's some sort of problem your machine is having, or it's draining massive amounts of battery that's not supposed to, definitely check into software and BIOS updates for the machine, because it's not supposed to do that.
There you go. That's why he's the full geek, folks.
I love it.
He's not that happy. Good stuff. Marco, did you want to dive in with some more questions, or?
I do. I'm gonna go back, to foundational stuff here, as we continue talking about the different platforms. One of the differentiators when Snapdragon X first hit was that really powerful MPU. Right. It was when it first launched, it was clearly, class leading, head and shoulders above anything else that was on the market at that time. Could you just provide some background info on how that sort of all shook out with Microsoft? Were you guys ready with the MPU and pitched Microsoft, or was Microsoft sort of clamoring for some of this functionality and you guys answered the call?
Great question. I'm not intimately involved in the conversations, but I could tell you this, on the smartphones, the reason why we had such a powerful NPU and why we frankly beat everyone to the market with a super strong NPU was because on the smartphone side, we had this, and our OEMs there and the app developers there were demanding it, frankly. For the past 5 years, everyone had been experimenting with neural networks running on the camera. When you open the camera app from any of the smartphones that use Snapdragon, they have multiple neural networks running, and they're doing even like the mundane stuff, from like autofocus to auto white balance to auto exposure, all that stuff. And then on top of it, the segmentation for portrait mode is being done there. And one of the earliest projects, I think, with neural networks being commercially deployed was on the Pixel, I think it was the Pixel 4. And it was, they had things happening on the camera, but always running neural networks were there's a feature called Now Playing. And it's a neural network that's always listening for music. And it's doing music identification. And so anywhere you go, you have this long, list of music that you heard. It's amazing. It's amazing. So that was, basically just AI neural networks having to be always on, and they needed this piece of hardware to be super, low power, super fast, so it could run all day and not use any battery. So, it was born out of the DSP, and now it just grew larger and larger and larger, and that's what grew into the 45 TOPS NPU that's inside the Snapdragon X Elite. So we already had this massive innovation going on in the smartphone side that was building neural networks into these apps, and it's my understanding we are very collaborative with Microsoft, and they understand what they're building with our roadmaps, and they had been building neural networks for a long time in their operating system. Well, I wouldn't say a long time, but they've had Windows Studio Effects, which is their before Copilot Plus PC brand existed, they had Windows Studio Effects, which are the features that are built into Windows on Snapdragon that enhanced image quality from your webcam in real time and also enhanced the audio quality. And what they found was using these neural networks running on our CPU, if you ran all of them at the same time, they used 20 watts of power.
Oh.
But if you, but when they put them onto our NPU, they consumed I think it was basically, they reduced it by 138x.
Wow.
So it was less than 0.1 watt of power. And so with that, they went, bonkers, experimenting with neural networks and running them real time, always on. So laptop form factors, could take advantage of these. So I think a lot of people, obviously there's the development is going on. People are building neural networks, everywhere, and they want to be able to, run them super fast, but it's super low power. And that's the NPU. And so actually, and then I'll stop ranting. But at the beginning of the year, we're actually not even the beginning of the year, in May, when we kicked off when we unveiled the Copilot Plus PC brand with Microsoft, they had their Copilot Plus features, which all run on the NPU. And we had a few third-party apps that use the NPU. But now, as it stands today, we have over 50 third-party NPU-powered features. And that's from tons of big names. DaVinci Resolve, DJ Pro, Zoom. They're all using the NPU to deliver sometimes features they already have. Like Zoom, for example, they're doing portrait lighting and their virtual background effects. They always had that, but they transitioned them to neural networks, and they transitioned them from the CPU to running on our NPU. So they get much longer battery life and better accuracy and results. So you can, do Zoom calls and get much longer battery life.
Yep. Good stuff.
In my off time, I like to pretend that I'm a photographer. Like I fell in love with photography through the pandemic, and lots of the new AI features, in apps like Photoshop or Luminar Neo, the subject detection and the auto skin detection. It's so much smoother and faster now, right? When you have an NPU in the system to do some of these, to use some of these features. And what also doesn't really get talked about is like now the CPU is free to do other stuff while the NPU is doing this. So it's I think once people realize all the cool stuff that the NPU enables, it's kind of going to snowball from there.
To your point, it reminds me, I'm 42. And so I remember, living through like discrete GPUs coming out, and, applications were GPU accelerated. So they were just, it wasn't that, and sometimes it wasn't, they were adding new features. It was just features that you loved could now be even faster thanks to the GPU. To your point, Marco, now it's like a lot of stuff is just features that you always loved are now even faster and better, and, don't suck as much power thanks to the NPU acceleration.
Yeah. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm around long enough to remember GDI acceleration on 3D effects chips. So like before 3D. Sorry, go ahead, Dave. I keep interrupting you.
No, that tells you something.
That's awesome.
And we won't talk about how old I am either. So, Marco, I know I'm looking at another question in the chat. I don't know if we want to tee that up or not. I'm
going to half answer. The question comes in from that guy on YouTube, and he's asking about alternative OSs on Snapdragon, and I can sort of answer that for PJ, and it kind of tees me up for where I was going to go with my next question. To have an alternative OS on a platform, you need all the supporting platform drivers, what have you. And Snapdragon X Elite was first introduced as a Windows platform, and all of the kinks and any other issues with alternative OSs will likely get worked out over time. But for now, it's mostly a Windows platform. There is Linux support. Actually, I think I tested Linux at Snapdragon X Elite at a Snapdragon Summit before the launch, but that's a whole different conversation. But that's sort of tease up a question. One of the real challenges, right, for you guys and Microsoft was this is not the traditional Windows platform, right? It's not the incumbent x86 platform. What sort of challenges did you guys face initially bringing out, a Snapdragon-based platform for Windows, and how has it progressed since launch? Because it's really, the software is rapidly evolving. The platform's not really not changing for now, but the software is rapidly changing. Can you give us some background on all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 100%. So it's a different architecture on our CPU, and we can run software that was written for x86 architecture. And previous to this year, there was an emulator that ran in Windows, and the emulator has had tons of upgrades. So years ago, when it first launched, I believe we could only emulate 32-bit apps, and we couldn't emulate 64-bit apps. Then they upgraded it; it could run 64-bit apps. This year, they introduced the Prism emulator, which is a big upgrade to their emulation capabilities, and includes it. Not just being able to, run more apps, but just do them faster. So compared to like the previous generation Snapdragon chip, the combination of our hardware plus their software delivered like a 3x performance boost to running apps. So for all of the x86 apps out there, like which are apparently there's about, according to Microsoft, like 35 million Windows apps. The Prism emulator was built for that. The thing it wasn't built for, and can't emulate and can never emulate, are drivers. And so applications that require drivers can't be emulated. Those have to be recompiled and written natively for Snapdragon. I think we're going into 2025. I think when people look back at 2024, they're going to look back and be like, you know what? That was the year that the Windows ecosystem, the transition to Snapdragon native began, because we're going to end 2024. It looks like with possibly between 400 and 500 native apps for Snapdragon. Additionally, of those 400 to 500 apps, 100 of them have native drivers now. And so apps, typically security apps, VPN, and cloud storage apps require drivers. And we're now at the state where I believe the top 20 most popular VPN apps all are native on Snapdragon now. That includes ExpressVPN, Nord, PIA, everybody's there. And each one of those required a driver. And that's a heavy lift. But the fact that they did that, I think, shows, that they are confident and, like want to be at this ecosystem and think it's going to be there. By the way, we've got over 40 laptops in the market now also. From everybody, Samsung, Lenovo, Microsoft, you name it, they're there. But additionally, the top, the top 50 security apps are all available on Snapdragon, as well as like the most popular, cloud storage guys are there also. So Google Drive is officially, the beta is available as of, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I think, on top of that, I think my favorite subject at Snapdragon Summit, a driver that wasn't there, was the ASIO driver. And that is what enables you to plug an instrument into your laptop and create and record music. And Dave, you absolutely killed it at Snapdragon Summit. The audience needs to know Dave's an awesome guitar player and was put on the spot and stepped up to it. We had like a guitar virtuoso and a keyboard virtuoso there just jamming. They did a great job. And then we looked out at, a group of 20 people who saw the demo and were like, hey, who plays guitar? Anyone want to try? And I just went, Dave plays guitar. Dave, you got to play. And without hesitation, I'd say you were kind of like, and everyone's like, Dave. And you strapped onto the Snapdragon branded guitar and you rocked out, even though the guitar was out there in the sun for a long time. It was a little bit out of tune. We apologize for that. On behalf of Qualcomm, we apologize for handing you a little bit out. But dude, everyone, I'll see if I could. I think you guys have the video, but all of a sudden the keyboard player started playing drums on the keyboard, and Dave for like a full 2 minutes was just kept the beat. And dude, great job, man.
So, dude, I think PJ hears voices in his head, because I was literally just IMing Dave and saying you should probably bring up the ASIO stuff, and then PJ went into it.
Well, and tell you what, that was a bit of a hot seat, PJ, because I am a what I would call a part-time guitarist. I love guitars. I've been playing since I was a teenager, but I don't play enough anymore because I work too much. But and yes, you did hand me an untuned guitar, but thank God the virtuosos that you mentioned were there, because that drummer made everything sound so much better.
It was great. You sounded great. And we're gonna the next time we hand you a guitar, I promise it will be in perfect tune, and it'll be awesome.
And I might actually practice between now and then. But that's actually the next topic we were going to go to, was the ASIO driver. And what folks probably don't realize, and this is an interesting story. You and I had a couple of cold ones and talked this over while we were out at Snapdragon Summit. And what they don't realize is that this was a big problem on Windows laptops historically, where you would plug something in to, an instrument in, and the latency was such that it was basically unusable. You just couldn't rely on it. And frankly, I hate to say the dirty word, but that's what Macs did well, was they had that one stupid part that, well, they do content creation well, and they had that nailed down. It was always very low latency, seamless, all that good stuff. Windows wasn't the issue, and it was a problem that Microsoft and frankly Intel and AMD and anybody that's involved in the Windows ecosystem never really got around to fixing. And it really was got around to fixing because why don't you tell the story how this came to be, how this new driver came that enabled this in basically for all Windows machines now eventually, right?
100%. X86 should thank us, and we're happy to fix this. But Pete Brown at Windows, huge credit goes to him and Yamaha, which I'll get to, and I'll explain what happened. So yes, here's the whole story. And going back to your earlier question, you're like, hey, what's it like doing, marketing at Qualcomm and working with there? This was an example of us going to engineering in the marketing side, and we were like, hey guys, what is the story with this, and how can we get it working? And they were like, hey, that's a good idea. Let's talk about it. So to your point, in Windows, if you were to get a DAW app, a digital audio workstation, these are basically, it's like the flip side of video editing. It's apps that are just for audio editing. And they and I think they do two things. They allow you to edit audio. Additionally, they have this whole world built into them that allows you to, they've replicated musical equipment like guitar amps, guitar effects pedals, keyboards, drums. All of these instruments and effects for them have been digitally recreated in these DAW apps. And if you get what's called, I meant to bring it here. It's what's called a USB interface. All it does is allow you to plug your analog instrument into a box that converts it into a USB cable. That's it. And so they've existed on the x86 side of Windows forever. However, Microsoft never had a generic driver for them. So on Snapdragon, there's tons of generic drivers. So for webcams, keyboards, mice, microphones. So if you plug them in onto a Snapdragon Windows laptop or an x86 one, they're just going to work. But for these USB audio interface devices, they require an ASIO, audio stream input output. That's what ASIO stands for. And so they require this ASIO driver. Microsoft never created a ASIO driver for these devices. To their credit, it's frankly because Windows is such a big operating system. There's so many devices out there that people have created and apps and devices they built for them, they can't be expected to build a driver for everything and every peripheral out there. But we're decades later, and these USB devices are super popular, and they're now how most, I can't speak for the whole industry, but tons of people create music on Windows laptops now. I don't know if they ever envisioned a future in which, in a recording studio, you go in and you plug into a laptop, and that's how you create your tone. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. This is it. So this is the Steinberg IXO 2022, and that's exactly how you plug into it. Just plug your guitar right into that top input, and in the back, you plug the USB cable into your computer, and you could sound like Jimi Hendrix or Van Halen or Angus Young of AC/DC. Or if you play piano, there's tons of digital pianos. Or if you have an electronic drum kit, you can simulate all sorts of different drums. So we called up Microsoft, and we were like, hey, we know you don't create a driver for this. Who should we talk to that would be interested? Which company would be interested in creating a driver that would be native for Snapdragon? Would it be Steinberg, Focusrite, PreSonus? There's tons of guys out there. And we were fortunate enough to meet with Pete Brown, who's principal audio engineer at Microsoft. And he's like, guys, you know what? I've always wanted to create a generic driver for Windows so that anyone can plug one of these devices in and it will just work. And then they can install any DAW app and these devices will just work. Would you guys be willing to work with us on this and dedicate engineering resources? And we, in marketing, we were like, guys, engineering, you got to do this. Look at this whole ecosystem that could be enabled. The engineering was like, let's do it. And Microsoft said to us, they go, okay, there we go. Look at this, dude. And so
I'm just playing the video.
I love it. So this is cute. This is it. So Microsoft said to us, they're like, guys, we got to bring Yamaha into this. And I'm like, what does Yamaha have to do with this? And they're like, Yamaha is the largest creator of electronic instruments. They are the masters in this domain. They can help us write a kick butt driver for this. And we're like, okay. So Dave, to your point, these guys turned around a driver that the latency, that's the amount of time when you hit the strings on your guitar to which the effects are applied and then they come through your speakers. They got it down to 4 milliseconds, which is crazy. And then we brought in Cubase, who's one of the legends in digital audio workstations. Hans Zimmer, who is the gold standard now for creating scores in exactly all these tracks, or recording all these instruments. Hans Zimmer is the master scorer now. He does all of Christopher Nolan's movies. He's a Cubase user. And so these guys are like, hey, we want in on the party. We want to make our software native on Snapdragon. And so we all joined forces. And at Snapdragon Summit, we unveiled the ASIO driver, which is coming to the Windows Insider program soon. But we demoed it at Snapdragon Summit. Steinberg's also took the initiative. They took that driver and they've customized it a little bit for their Steinberg audio interfaces. So if you go to Cubase, to their website right now, you can download the preview of Cubase on Snapdragon, and it includes their ASIO driver, which is compatible with a lot of devices. And you can, Dave, I believe you and your team are out testing it and trying it out right now. And you know what? With that, I've ranted. Is there anything that I missed out and you want me to answer on this story? I think that was basically the story, but Pete Brown enabled all this. Oh, but actually, let me say this. Cubase was the first. We owe those guys everything. We're going to continue to work with them. They have more announcements coming about Snapdragons. Everybody stay tuned. In the next few months, they're going to have some announcements about some continued work on Snapdragon. Additionally, Reaper, another DAW, is available right now for preview on ARM. Reason from Reason Studios. Martinic a company that makes plugins for these DAWs. That's a plugin is a third-party virtual instrument. So there's a big market, and people are like, "Hey, I've digitally recreated this keyboard or this guitar amplifier." They've created, even though it doesn't have to be a native what's called VST file plugin, they created. They're like, "Hey, we want to have some fun and create a native one so it works, gets maximum performance out of the Orion CPU and Snapdragon." They've released a native version, and we've got stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of things to say in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pro Tools, maybe.
You know what? So we stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, we don't want to
So
get you in trouble.
But hey, we would love for your audience to go digging, go check out who are the other big DAWs. But we're gonna have a lot to say in early 2025. But everyone should, you know what what I wanted to show actually at Snapdragon Summit was, I think a lot of people didn't know that you could plug your guitar into your computer and then all of a sudden you could sound like Brian May from Queen. You can sound like Angus Young, you know, and it's just an awesome tool. And again, Dave, you picked up the guitar and just absolutely jammed out. And I think that was awesome. And we want to help create even more musicians. And anytime you see somebody on Instagram or on YouTube, just, you know, shredding and rocking around a guitar, they're more than likely plugged directly into their laptop via a USB audio interface in a DAW. And that's how they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's funny as a guitarist, that's generally what you spend way too much time doing, is hunting for the right tone, right? And so if you can dial up in a DAW app and go, I want the tone of Jimi Hendrix Marshall stack. I want the tone of Brian May's awesome, you know, handmade guitar that he uses. And, you know, now you can just push of a button. Oh, there's the tone, man. There it is. And so it's really cool. It's very cool technology. And it makes hacks like me actually sound almost listenable. So
totally. No. You sounded great, dude.
It's good. It was good stuff. Good stuff for sure. What I heard something from Microsoft on AVX enablement recently on the platform. Is that right?
Absolutely. So about 2 weeks ago, the Prism emulator got updated to support AVX and AVX2 instructions. So those are going to make a lot of apps work better. So that was what enabled Adobe. Some of their apps have been natively recompiled for Snapdragon, like Lightroom and Photoshop. But then other apps currently run in emulation, like Adobe Premiere. And so thanks to the new AVX and AVX2 emulation, now the latest version, Adobe Premiere version 24, was enabled on the platform. And I've been using it to cut a couple of videos. It's awesome, works great. And they have there's actually a website where they give more details about what's coming. And we're doing a lot of work with them. And you'll hear more at CES.
All right. There we go. Tips to pay attention for the CES timeframe, which is rolling in far too fast, by the way. Every year, it's like we get caught blindsided with the mad rush that is CES. But yeah, you guys are going to be making some announcements out there, I'm sure. And so we will we'll instruct folks to stay tuned to that channel. What else, Mark? Are we missing anything, or are we getting close to letting PJ
Can
wrap
I put
up?
you on the spot and try to get some salacious info out of you? So, you know, we know Snapdragon X, like in notebooks, in these, you know, tiny platforms where they're really power constrained, performance is highly competitive, very good, class leading in many cases. What would Snapdragon X do in a non-power constrained environment, say maybe a desktop or something like that? Any possibility of in the future of seeing that happen? And I don't know, maybe a discrete GPU being attached to a Snapdragon X Elite? Without getting in trouble, can you give us any info in that regard?
I'll tell you this. Everyone wants to know that. That is the burning question. Everywhere we go, they're like, hey, this is awesome. They're like, let it rip. Like we want to know. And we want to answer that question. And and we want to, you know, I think we have nothing to announce today, but we're getting that question from everyone. Everyone's interested, and we want to, you know, obviously we want to make people happy. As of today, there's, you know, no technical like limitations on why we couldn't get a discrete GPU attached to us. But out the gate, you know, we wanted to look. We had something to prove with and we had to prove it with laptops. You know, that's what we could do. We know we could deliver on battery life, and I think we made a lot of people happy, and I think Snapdragon wants to take on. You know, we're going to continue to keep raising the bar, and I think hopefully in 2025, you know, we're not announcing anything, can't announce anything, but we want to make everyone happy, and so we'll keep you posted. There's no technical reason why we couldn't do discrete GPUs. We almost you know, we've showcased that we will be doing desktops, and so just stay tuned. We will have some more to say very, very soon. We'll have some stuff to say about desktops.
Cool. I want to see a 7 gigahertz, 150 watt Snapdragon X.
Totally.
That'd be nice. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I specifically remember. I think it may have been in Taiwan at Computex where Cristiano, the CEO, Cristiano Amon of CEO of Qualcomm, was on stage. And big dog and pony show with all the major OEMs that you know, build laptops now. And one of the slides he had up was a picture of an all-in-one with a Snapdragon logo on it. And so, yes, they were. You guys have already sort of hinted towards that. You know, kind of tipped your hat a little bit that kind of platform could be coming. And so, yeah, we'll wait with bated breath for what's next.
It's happening. Look, and he showed it off for a reason. It will happen. It will happen soon.
All right. There you go. You heard it here first, folks. And with that, I think we should probably let poor PJ go and get back to his day before it's completely evaporated on him, and he has to kick into Thanksgiving mode pretty soon, I would imagine, too, right?
Hey, yeah. I mean, we all do. And hey, I know you guys are gonna get buried with work soon to CES. We all know, like, getting to work in tech, fun gig, but you guys don't get the holidays.
Yeah.
You're gonna be at CES. You're gonna have to be covering all this news. So good luck to you guys also. Thank you guys for having me on. It's totally awesome. And stay tuned for CES, and maybe stay tuned for NAMM, the biggest musical instrument show in California. We want to show up. We might show up, but I'll keep you posted on that. But if not, we'll see you at CES.
Awesome. PJ Jacobowitz dropping all kinds of hints here from Qualcomm. Thank you so much for joining us today, brother. Really appreciate your time and your graciousness and your energy, the energy that you know, exudes from you, dude.
Thank you.
I think
you guys are fun.
We're excited
appreciate you
about
guys
your
having fun
job.
with us.
What's that?
I said, well, no, thank you guys for having fun. You guys charge me up, so I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us as well. You can find us on the web at hothardware.com, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardware. You should hit thumbs up and subscribe, please, so you get notified when we go streaming. And we can have more of these fun, interesting talks with guys like PJ, smart guys from Qualcomm. Thanks again, buddy. It was great to see you. And thanks, everybody, for stopping by.